Hey, I'm Stephanie, and it's time to talk cream and liquid products because I have thoughts. For example, I finally formed an opinion on the Lisa Eldridge Gloss Embrace lip gloss, and it only took me 2 months. I'm a bit slow. Also, brushes. Do expensive ones actually make a difference? And all of these thoughts are happening within the context of the Partners in Cream Project Pan, which was originally started by Steph Lyons and Dalin, both of whom will be linked below. As always, I've included timestamps in the show notes, so you can simply jump around to whatever's most interesting for you. First off, to anyone who's new here, all the rules for the project will be listed in the show notes. But the basic premise of the project is this. It was created to help us give our cream and liquid products the lurv they deserve before they expire, since they do tend to go off faster than powder products. But if you're looking for like the prime example of an awesome panner, I'm probably not it. Luckily, the panning community might just be one of the kindest on the internet, and none of them have yelled at me yet. The reason that I say I'm a bad panner is because, as the name suggests, it originates from people trying to completely use up or pan a product. And that's like the whole purpose behind the whole phenomenon. And yet, that's not what I use these projects for. Although, don't get me wrong, there is nothing more satisfying than completely panning a well-loved product. But I tend to use these kinds of projects to immerse myself in what I have and learn how to treasure it more. And also, I find that when I use specific products really intensively over a certain period of time, it really helps me get to know all of their nuances. And if you've been watching any of my other videos, you might already know that I am currently in the process of a slow motion, full collection makeup declutter. And I'm using all of this time with these cosmetics to really inform my choices and ensure that I can really separate the wheat from the chaff, only keeping the best of the best. So if that kind of content sounds interesting to you, maybe you'd like to consider subscribing. But now let's get into what I've been using because I have thoughts. Starting with the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Foundation, which I used 15 times this past month. I had been using BB creams and CC creams for so long that I kind of forgot how wonderful it is just to work with a pure foundation. And I've been working with several over the past couple of months, and I've been enjoying most of them, but I have to say the Luminous Silk is right up there at the very top as one of my favorites, especially for everyday wear. And that's something I never thought I would hear myself say because this foundation is pretty pricey. So old me would have saved it for only special occasions. But new and informed me, however, has since come to the realization that it takes me forever to use up a foundation, even if I'm using it almost every day. And I mean, case in point, I have been using this one regularly for the past 4 months, and I'm not even quite halfway through the bottle. And it's been great. The finish of this is very skin-like. It never emphasizes any of my texture or my larger pores, which is something I definitely deal with, so I appreciate that. It never sinks into my fine lines, and it's just so easy to apply and blend out. So I can see why this one is such a classic. Next up is my Hourglass Illume Sheer Color Trio in the shade Sunset, which I used 16 times. And I have to say that as the weather has been getting warmer and my skin has been getting oilier, I've come to appreciate the matte blurring finish of this palette even more. The one shade I want to dive into more in the coming month is the highlighter because I feel like I don't quite get it yet. And you'd think that after using it for 6 months, I would understand it, but for some reason I don't. It's trying to be matte, yet it has shimmers in it. And so it's not that it looks chalky because it doesn't, but I just feel like I haven't quite mastered the way I should apply it to get the ideal finish yet. And I have been tapping it in with a finger, like on my cheek for the most part. And I'm wondering if it's more the sort of thing I'd have to actually sheer out because I mean, this is the Illume Sheer Color Trio. So I'm going to have to experiment more specifically with this shade this coming month. Next, we come to my Laura Mercier Caviar stick in the shade Amethyst, which I used 16 times. Now, during the past couple of months, I'd basically been using this just as a beautiful eyeliner, and I'd been loving it like that. But for some reason, this month, I was just really inspired to just put this shade all over my eye. And I don't know what changed, but I was going ham on this, either using it as a one-and-done shadow or using it as an eyeshadow base, specifically with two palettes of mine. The Pat McGrath Divine Rose 2 palette with this shade specifically. This is like the perfect combo. It's what I'm wearing on my eyes today. And this also worked really well with the Kevyn Aucoin Nude Pop palette. So I was having a ton of fun using this. It was like the perfect combination. But I noticed that the best way to apply this particular shade for me when I'm using it as an all-over eyeshadow or as an eyeshadow base was with a brush. Now, normally when I think of an eyeshadow stick, I just think of taking it and drawing right onto my eye, and that's what I normally do. This one just tends to work a little bit better, I find, when I go in directly with the brush onto the Caviar stick itself and then paint it onto the eye. And I had been using a Real Techniques brush, an old eyeshadow brush that I've had for years, and it's always worked perfectly fine. And I had been using that to try that technique out. And I have to say, like, I wasn't really that impressed. This particular shade has some sparkle particles in it, and I felt like that brush kind of drew them out to the surface of the formula in a really strange way. So it made the shadow look a lot drier and dustier than it's ever looked before. But then I tried the same technique using a fancy schmancy Sonia G Fusion brush, and wow, the difference was pretty remarkable. And I'm not sure, like, I don't know, Joe Schmo out on the street would have noticed the difference, but me, as a nitpicker of makeup, I noticed a huge difference. It was like the formula all of a sudden looked really hydrated and juicy, and it even had more longevity. And I was like, wow, the only thing I changed was the brush. That's pretty amazing. Maybe brushes really do make a difference. So I don't know, maybe once I'm finished with my makeup declutter, I'm going to have to go through a brush declutter. I feel like it never ends. But back to makeup, let's talk about my Guerlain Le Rouge Sheer Velvet lipstick in the shade 16, which I wore 14 times. I don't have much new to report back about this lipstick other than the fact that I still absolutely love it. I still feel like it looks vampy on me, but only when I'm applying it. Once I see myself wearing this in pictures or in videos, I always think it looks great. So I think, honestly, I just have to get used to the fact that colors like this really work well for me. And to be honest, I think this is actually the perfect formula to inspire me to wear colors that are slightly outside of my comfort zone, because the formula is just so lovely. The way it mattifies and blurs the lips and the way that it fades so gracefully throughout the day. I still just really love this thing. And last but not least, we have the Lisa Eldridge Gloss Embrace Lip Gloss in the shade Songbird, which I used a whopping 39 times in the past month. And I finally know what I think about it. It took me over 100 total uses to finally get the fact that I need to think of this not as a lip gloss, but instead as a tinted lip mask. I realize that that's like a very subtle difference, but that mental shift has made all the difference in how I feel about using this. I initially just felt kind of about it, like, oh, it's okay. But like when I think of Lisa Eldridge, I think, oh my gosh, she's going to create the most amazing thing ever. And in reality, she did a great job creating a gorgeous, nourishing lip mask that has amazing tenacity for this kind of a product. Because I find that I will still feel it on my lips even after I've eaten lunch or maybe taken a drink, and it's still on my lips. And so I am actually very impressed by this. I really enjoy it, but I do think that there's like a slight flaw in the packaging. The reason I say that is because this particular product is pretty thick and pretty sticky. And so what was happening was all of it was clinging to the sides of the container. And then when I would try to get it out, I'd try to scrape some off the sides with the doe foot applicator, that motion was being stopped by the stopper. And so I realized it was coming to the point where I would need to take the stopper out. And I just thought, oh, well, I've probably used the majority of the product, so that'll be fine. So I took the stopper out to realize that I still had over half of the product left in here. And I mean, it's not the end of the world. I can still use it. The only problem is that now that the stopper isn't in there anymore, there's no way to remove the excess product from the applicator. And so instead of coming out in the perfectly dosed amount, which it did when the stopper was in there, now it just comes out in one big glop. And it's not the end of the world. I simply dab the glop onto my lip and then rub it in with my finger. And the end result looks just as beautiful, feels just as nourishing, but the delivery method is not really ideal. And to have so much product left over when I took the stopper out, that was a little bit shocking. Like, I know that there's often more than you think there is in there when you take a stopper out, but I mean, over half? I just feel like there needs to be some adjustments on how this works. I would actually be curious to see how this product works in her different pigment level options. I know that I've had my eye on Cinnabar for a while, and that's one of the high pigment options. And the thing is, normally I don't like highly pigmented glosses because I just feel like the potential that they move around or smudge is just too great. But I feel like because of the longevity and tenacity of this particular formula, that one actually might work and might look really nice. Or the shade Ribbon. I don't know. She has so many good shades. Have you tried any of the other pigment levels in her formula? If so, please let me know what you think. And if you haven't tried them, I'd love to hear from you anyway. So I hope you'll say hi in the comments. But even if you don't subscribe, even if you don't even give this video a thumbs up, which I hope you'll do, I hope you'll have a great week anyway. And that we can all remember that even stumbling can be a form of moving forward. So let's stumble in style.